Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another round of Takara Tomy Jurassic World figures, but this time we've got some weirder ones, a little bit cheaper when it comes to these type of figures compared to the standard stuff we see from Takara Tomy. And as you can see, we have three different dinosaurs in this set. There is an Indominus Rex, a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and an Indoraptor. Basically, these are like capsule figures that you would find in I guess like claw machines and stuff like that. I assume that's where these figures come from, and these are a bit cheaper than like the standard stuff. And you can see that instantly just because of the fact that like the figures are kind of having trouble standing, especially the Indoraptor is like a nightmare to try to get to stand. I'm actually going to readjust the camera. But the figures as a whole aren't quite the standard quality of Takara Tomy. And you can see it instantly when I bring the figure up and you take a look at the head sculpt. It looks like, you know, the detail's pretty washed out. It doesn't look all that nice. The original promo images that I had seen for these figures were definitely nicer than the figures themselves are in hand. You can really see variation of color on this that doesn't look good either. Like you have a really dark gray for the head and then like a super light gray for the body as you move back. So like the transition is super abrupt. It's not smooth or natural and looks out of place. The teeth are kind of painted, but more so painted on the inside of the mouth. Like the teeth on the lower jaw are painted, but here on the upper jaw you don't really see paintwork for the teeth, which is weird. The overall head sculpt looks fairly similar to an Indominus Rex, so they did okay in that aspect. You can see the nostrils there. The eyes are painted with a red and they're fairly decently placed. They do have a black pupil. The mouth does have a pinkish tone for the inside that my camera doesn't want to focus on for some reason. Really does not want to. There you can kind of see the tongue and the skin stretching, of course, and the pink there on the upper side of the inside of the mouth. Washed out detail in there as well. It does have some articulation. As you can see, the jaw articulates, but the head comes separate. Like all the tail area has to be pushed on, and then the body and the head is all separate in the package. So the head is a little bit touchy. It tends to like fall off easily. Moving down through the body, again, the detail is okay for what it is, but by no means is it impressive. You've got some osteoderms, of course, following along the back there of the dinosaur. You basically have like the grayish tone with maybe some slight variation of color and a little bit of a lighter tone for the underside. Moving down to the arms, you can see the arms are okay as far as the sculpt goes. We actually have painted hand claws, though, which is nice, and you can see the quills and everything, but everything kind of blends together as far as the sculpt goes because it's just not all that high quality. The arms are also a little bit of a mystery to me because some of them seem like they should have articulation but actually don't, whereas this one does kind of have some articulation. I don't know if the other arm does. Yeah, so you can kind of move these arms, but like the Indoraptor, when I try to move the arms on the Indoraptor, they just kind of fall right back into place. So I don't know, it's kind of weird. As you move back, you can see the leg again has a darker gray up there on the top that sticks out like a sore thumb. Does not blend with the coloration of the lighter body there. You also have a little bit more of that darker gray moving along the back of the tail. I feel like that darker gray was meant to be up here, and for some reason it was just like forgotten or something. As you move down into the feet look okay. Again, you do have dew claws, which are unpainted, but the other three toes have received paintwork for the claws, which is at least nice. You do have articulation in the legs, forward and back, and that's really it. The only real plus side, I would say, and of course this piece wants to keep falling out, but to these figures is the fact that it has different style articulation. So if you don't like the ball joints of your standard Takara Tomy figures, you can articulate these in a little bit of a different way. But as you can see, the more you articulate it, the more it falls off because, again, they are so cheap. So you have to kind of articulate it and then make sure that the arm just fell off now on the other side. Again, showing you how cheap these ones are. I have to get that back on there. But the articulation does look, in certain areas, a little bit smoother than the ball joint articulation that we usually get from Takara Tomy. But overall, it's not really that great in the grand scheme of things, and it's probably one of the more cheap and lackluster Indominus figures that I have seen. You also have the T-Rex, and the T-Rex, first of all, actually has some scuffs of paint here on the back of the head, but does sort of look like a Jurassic World T-Rex, but almost at the same time has a little bit of a cartoony sort of a look, which I'm not a big fan of. You can also see the top of the head is falling off already. The jaw does articulate, which you can see, but it is very loose, so it does tend to fall. The teeth are painted, but they're super rounded and kind of ugly looking. We do have a pink for the tongue on the inside of the mouth, and then a pink on the upper side of the inside of the mouth. But it looks okay. Again, not really all that bad, but not that great. We do have like a white for the eye and then a black pupil. Basically like those standard Jurassic World brown tones for this one, with some darker tones airbrushed, you know, occasionally throughout the figure. A little bit of a darker shade of brown here compared to the other browns that we have on the figure. So there is a little variation of color throughout the body. The fine detail on this one as well, kind of lackluster, like it's fairly washed out and not all that impressive. We can kind of make out the rib cage though, which is at least nice. As you move down to these extra long T-Rex arms, we can see the claws are painted on the hand with a brownish tone, which is nice to at least have some painted claws. Again, paintwork for the dew claw, non-existent, but paintwork for the regular toes looks okay. The feet look super silly though. Even the feet kind of look a little cartoonish as far as its appearance goes. You do of course also have the tail sculpted, but as you see leading out, like there's really not much in the way of fine detail. Like there is some slight texturing, but it's not all that impressive. And as you move over here, you'll see the same thing again on this side. Like I said, the jaw does articulate. The arms don't. No, I didn't think so. If we look under here, it's just one separate piece that apparently was pushed in there. So the arms do not articulate. The legs do, of course, forward and back, and that's it. And then the tail and this second area of the tail do articulate. But again, they will fall out if you're not too careful. If you articulate them too far or too often without pushing them back in, they do tend to fall out. So again, it's okay. The legs are also very flexible, which you can see, which is actually a little bit of a problem because it makes it hard for the figure at times to stand, and the legs also warp very easily, which again is something you'll have to fix occasionally when you have it standing. I wouldn't recommend displaying it on the edge of a shelf or anything anywhere because it's probably going to fall over. Then we have the Indoraptor, which kind of looks fairly reminiscent to the standard Indoraptor that they have in their line. I think the Indoraptor, even if it doesn't really stand too well, is probably the best of the group. Like the sculpt looks, you know, questionable, but the figure as a whole I just feel like looks a little more consistent and a little bit higher quality than the other two. The eyes are painted with a red. We do have a yellow around the pupil and then a black for the pupil. Again, the jaw is articulated, which as you move it down, you can see the teeth. Again, they look kind of silly. The tongue and everything painted with a pink on the inside of the mouth. Same deal for the pink up there on the upper side of the inside of the mouth. The head sculpt does sort of look like the Indoraptor, but not all that nicely. It's definitely not that well done when it comes to screen accuracy. This one, again, like I said, the arms look like they should articulate, but as you move it, you can see they just end up right back up where they go. And it is kind of an awkward positioning. I don't really like the awkwardness of the look of the arms. Like, they're sculpted okay, but they're positioned in a really weird spot. I would have liked it if I could push the arms down and maybe put this in like a quadrupedal pose. I just feel like it would have looked better. But you do, of course, also have the stripe. Rather than a gold, it's more of a yellow, and then rather than the orange or anything added in, it's like red spots as you move through. But at least they did try, I guess. The skin texture, I think, looks a little bit better on this one, a little more vibrant. You can kind of see the quills in the back of the head and everything back there, and that sort of scoot-like appearance moving over the back of the Indoraptor in general. A little bit of a lighter tone here that does move along the underside of the figure as well, which is nice. And, of course, leading out into the tail. One good thing about this is I feel like the tails are a little longer than we get on some of the standard Takara Tomy figures. Like, the sculpt in general looks better when it comes to the tail length of a lot of these compared to their mainline figures, which is at least a little bit of a nice thing for this one. Again, like I said, the jaw does articulate. Also, the eye looks better when it comes to the paintwork over here. Focus. It was a little sloppy on the other side. Looks better on this side. But you do also, of course, have, well, that was really stiff, leg articulation forward and back. Of course, both legs. And then you can articulate the tail right here, so you can get some nice, you know, poses and tail swings going on for the Indoraptor, which again, I feel like this articulation sometimes doesn't work too well, like when they use it on like the sauropods, but it's a little bit nicer than the ball joints in the tails. So I don't know, it's kind of like a toss-up when it comes to that. But the Indoraptor is pretty cool. I would say it's definitely my favorite of the three. I'm going to use my T-Rex to prop up the Indoraptor so I can at least get it kind of standing here in somewhat of a natural position. But all three figures are roughly in the same size. I don't know how the heck I'm going to measure them. I guess I'll measure the Indominus back there. So lengthwise, you're looking at around 6¼ inches or about 15½ centimeters, maybe slightly over. Height-wise, like with the T-Rex standing up tall like that, you're looking at about just a hair under 2¾ inches or around 7 centimeters. For a size comparison, with a standard Takara Tomy release in their main line of figures, just to kind of show you that these are in fact a little bit smaller than your usual Takara Tomy figures. So these Takara Tomy Jurassic World capsule figures are okay as far as sort of stylized versions, but they are not even remotely close to as nice as the standard mainline figures of Takara Tomy, which those aren't even great, but they're definitely better quality than these guys. They're okay for what they are. They sort of resemble the dinosaurs they're meant to represent. I think the T-Rex is the furthest off as far as its design and appearance here goes compared to what we see in the film, and it also looks quite cartoony. But the Indoraptor and the Indominus, neither of those are picture perfect either. So they're okay. They just aren't that great. The fine detail isn't really that impressive either. It's fairly generic, and I think the Indoraptor probably looks the best as far as that goes. The paintwork is also, again, pretty generic and fairly lacking, especially on the Indominus, where it's super inconsistent, and I think they could have done a better job on that. Again, I think the Indoraptor wins as far as the paintwork goes. They do have a little bit better articulation in the tail than your standard Takara Tomy figures do, which is at least 1+ for them, and a little bit more tail length, I would say, which is also nice, but overall, they're not really all that impressive. If you are interested, though, you can purchase these on eBay and pretty much anywhere similar to eBay if they sell stuff like this. I have seen them on a few websites and stuff like Mercari. They pop up on once in a while and stuff like that. So if you are interested, I will try to find you the cheapest listing I can to put in the description. Pick them up if you want them, and of course, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.